When you're in a relationship with a narcissist, when you're trauma bonded to them, it's an addiction. You're addicted to the abuse cycle. You might have some love for them, but most of the intensity and the overwhelming feeling that you experience is an addiction to the dopamine that you feel after going through intense periods of dopamine withdrawal. And when you look at the dynamics of that relationship and how they trap you and how they keep you in the trauma bond, one of the worst mindsets you can have in that relationship and with any addiction is to think that you can handle it this time. When you get to that point where you think that you've seen the worst of this person, because one of the things that's really critical for you to understand is that narcissists get worse with time. They get worse as they age. And as time goes by, your tolerance for dealing with all of the things that they do, the gaslighting, the projection, the stonewalling, the baiting, the future faking, the dog whistling, and all the things that they do, the smear campaign, your tolerance over time is eroding. Your mental health is eroding. Your nervous system is being more dysregulated. And so you're talking about your health. You're talking about your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual and emotional health. All of these things are deteriorating as long as you are in close proximity to this person, as long as you are committed to emotionally investing into this person, you're allowing this person to erode your sense of identity and well-being. And it can be hard. It can be really difficult to get out of that trap, out of that trauma bond, because you look at everything that's necessary for you to do to escape, and it seems like they are insurmountable odds, like something that you'll never be able to overcome. And when you're in that position, you never want to get into the mindset where you believe that it's just easier to go down with the ship, that, okay, whatever happens, happens. You don't want to get into that mindset. You want to build onto what you have. You want to use what you got to get what you want. And one of the things I always share with my clients when I'm speaking to them about being in that position where you feel dependent on the narcissist, you feel like you can't escape, you feel like it's just too hard. But you want to remember that by the yard is hard, but inch by inch, anything is a cinch. And so how do you look at that? How do you approach that and apply that? Well, first, it's analogous to a person who's on a ship. I say you're on a cruise and it's a nightmare cruise and there's somebody going around hurting people and doing all kind of crazy things to people. But you're in the middle of the ocean and there's no land in sight. And so just the very thought of jumping off the ship and trying to swim and find your way back to land, it seems overwhelming. But let's say you could see land about 500 yards away, but you know you can't swim 500 yards and you don't have a life jacket or anything like that. That's how it feels sometimes when you're in that relationship with the narcissist. When you think about, it could be health issues, it could be finances, it could be children, that there are children involved, and you're trying to figure out how are you gonna make it. You have core fears and core hopes that make it feel like make you feel like you can't escape, like you're trapped permanently. But you're not trapped. You just need to be able to find a way to get those 500 yards. And so if you could just get in the water, if you could see what the water feels like, and you can swim around in the water and build the muscles that are necessary, muscles that you didn't even know you had. You build those muscles that are necessary to eventually work your way up to where you can swim 50 yards. And then you're able to swim, as you practice that, you can swim 100 yards. And practice makes better. And what you'll find is that the nature of the thing doesn't change. The nature of what you're doing and what you're seeking to accomplish doesn't change, but your ability to do it will increase as you exercise those muscles. And the muscles that are necessary to exercise, it's different for each person, but a lot of times it looks like gaining financial independence. It may look like improving your self-esteem. It could look like doing things that bring you joy, bring you pleasure. socializing with some of the people who support you and who see you and who want to see you win. And so as you practice those small things, you take those small steps to build up the necessary muscles. That's what's going to give you the strength to be able to jump off that ship with confidence when the time comes, when it presents itself. And a lot of times it just feels too overwhelming when you don't have and you haven't exercised those muscles that are a prerequisite to your escape. And it can feel like it's something that a situation that you just have to surrender to. But when you start to practice, you start to do those small things, what it does is it builds your confidence. It gives you hope for a future where you're living your authentic life apart from that person you feel trauma bonded to. And that little bit of hope will spark within you a new hope that'll just grow and it'll build within you. And it doesn't mean that you have to leave the fantasy world altogether, because oftentimes when you're in that position, the fantasy world feels like the only place of comfort. It feels like the only place where you feel safe, because the narcissist has conditioned you to rely on them, to be dependent on them. And so it feels like in this vast wilderness where everything is unsafe, the fantasy world and the trauma bond is the only thing that can give you that dopamine to make you feel safe, to make you feel connected, loved, and wanted. But as you build a life outside of it and you get your dopamine from other sources, other things that you're doing, it could be going to the gym, it could be being in a group with other people, being in a support group, just having a life outside of that hellish cycle can build up the strength that you need to eventually do what you need to do to jump off that ship and swim all the way to land.